Welcome, relational leaders and listeners. This is Cultivate, your podcast destination where we celebrate thriving relational leaders and encourage each other along the influence journey. I am Wendy F. Adams, your host and strategic guide. In each episode, I will engage with leaders who are sharing authentic stories that support impactful influence. I believe work shouldn't be a four-letter word, but should inspire, challenge, and fulfill. Through a high challenge and high support model, we will explore the recipe for relational leadership that drives meaningful change. You will gain insights from leaders who face the same challenges you may encounter and discover strategies to navigate them with resilience and purpose. She's part coach, part counselor, part compass, and all heart. Jennifer Rowland has spent over 2 decades helping people find clarity, resilience, and purpose. From private practice to boardroom consulting, Jen brings a rare gift. She sees the humanity behind the strategy. As the founder of Rowland Leadership Training and Consulting, she equips leaders to create cultures where people thrive and performance follows. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome not just a powerhouse coach, but a treasured friend. This is a conversation you won't want to miss. If you're seeking healthy leadership engagement in an open, empowering, and authentic environment, then you're in the right place. After all, as leaders, we're either driving progress or we're driving the problem. So let's grow together. Welcome to a fresh episode of Cultivate, and today is an extra special adventure as I welcome not only a powerhouse coach, but a treasured friend, Jennifer Rowland, founder and chief consultant with Rowland Leadership Training Consulting, LTC. In studio today, Jen, because I won't call you anything else, but it is wonderful. I'm pumped to have you join the Cultivate experience. I can't imagine what the audience is going to experience.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this, and it's exciting to see you in action. I'm just honored to be a part of it today.
Well, the thing that the audience has to recognize is that they've signed up for a bonus episode, and I don't know how long this is going to go. Jen, the time's going to fly by. Having you on the podcast is personal, obviously, in the best way. We've walked together as friends, as colleagues, and I've seen firsthand how your leadership is rooted in presence, great compassion, and truth telling. You know that at Cultivate for Good, I believe that meaningful relationships are the foundation of every thriving organization. So I want you to share with the audience your why and how it ignites your client engagement and how you show up for others.
Well, thank you for that. So I'll give you a little bit of my journey. I spent most of my life, most of my career in 4 walls in the traditional counseling space. I had my own private practice for a very long time. And it can be challenging just sitting with people, being in that space of hard. And so I was feeling a little bit burnout, but then COVID.
Mm.
I knew that when we started having COVID unfold and the words social distancing came up. I mean, honestly, I about lost my mind, just like everybody else in the world. But my perspective was different because when I had worked with many people, leaders, otherwise, one of the things I noticed about people is they lacked community, they lacked
Mm-hmm.
connection, and they lacked someone keeping them accountable and speaking into their lives, the ability to speak into someone else's life. So I would always encourage them as we were going through this journey of healing is find your people, find your community. And here COVID saying, I could hurt you, you could hurt me, let's hide from one another. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, what is this going to do? We're going to be in this for 6 weeks. What are we going to do? And of course, we know it felt like 6 years.
Yes.
Some people, it was so much longer than others. But I knew right in that moment, it was literally like the heavens opened up, and I knew that it was time for me to make a shift. I knew that the tools that I'd been using for almost 2 decades at that point, they were going to actually help people. But I needed to leave, my safe space of my counseling space, where I totally controlled everything. And I had to walk into businesses where people were hurting, And I felt like, okay, how can I help the community? Well, it's get into those businesses because we saw businesses just struggle. How do they cope in keeping their businesses open, taking care of their employees, taking care of the customers? And I thought, okay, I can help the community if I get into business. And if I can help the business, then I can help homes and I can help the community. And it's just this circle of life, really. So that had become my why. I always love helping people. But when I saw what was unfolding with COVID, I knew my why was starting to change. And for the
Mm.
I knew it was time for me to shift, but I had no idea what. And that opened up. And so, yeah, my why is to help leaders build themselves so they can build businesses that are really about their people so that they can create not only a company but a community where people want to spend time and they want to give and they want to go that extra mile when it's necessary. That was a long why, but that's my why.
Jen, like how that's all integrated, right? It doesn't just land on the leader and the individual. We're not just talking, and I love what you said. It's not a company. It's yes, the culture, but the community that pours out from all of those individuals then touch all these different aspects of their life and space, right? So uh, it had to be a long explanation. It had because there's such depth to. And we know that we've heard, and especially in the world of counseling that you came from, how much COVID had an effect
Mm,
on all of us.
yeah.
There's a sweetness, and I know to put those two things together, when we can hear those stories like yours, where something really positive came from. The pivoting that we didn't, well, we're like, no more pivots, but the pivot that actually brought us to purpose and progress.
Mm,
Wow, what something to celebrate in that. And the fact that you opened your hands up and said, I'm going to do something different here and see what happens because it's needed, it's necessary. To me, that sounds like the ultimate human element of
mm,
leadership. That, we talk about leading and influencing. What's the point if we lose the human factor?
mm.
Okay, so I want to dig into something.
Yeah.
You work with leaders who want to build, they want to motivate, they want to connect, they want to have a culture that's well-being.
Mhm.
What do you see as some of the most misunderstood aspects of being well in the workplace as you've started down this journey?
Yeah. Well, and it always has to go back to like the core of a person. I'm all about the root. Like I don't want to manage symptoms, whether it was in counseling or
Mm.
even in the business. Like why waste our time and energy? I like to be efficient.
Or will you right back here again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll find ourselves in 18 months right where we started. So I just think it's really important for us to start with that leader and being
Mm.
honest, as a leader, honest with myself, who am I? What's important to me? Have I lost my why? Have I lost my passion? And it's not that we need to sell the business or step down, but maybe it's just going back and having some of those early adventures, whether it's in our minds or just kind of going back to where we started. Why did we do this in the first place? So I think honesty is really key,
Mm.
being able to to build those kinds of cultures that we look for. And then it's, once we're honest with ourselves, I think the idea of just having somebody come alongside of us and talking with us, whether that's a mentor, maybe that's somebody that we've always looked to, maybe it's somebody outside the company. A lot of times leaders are isolated because
Yes.
they have to make hard decisions, and sometimes they'll separate themselves from those people that they have to make decisions about. But I'm just a believer of like leaning into that community because the answers are there. Yeah. And we have to do that together. So I think it's, being honest with ourselves and then also making sure that community is around us, whether it's our company or it's our own people or, outside of the company.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're talking about, and to touch back into the whole COVID piece, right? What was the hardest thing? The isolation.
Yeah.
Why would we self-impose that, right? But that's so often what happens in leadership. We talk about that the need to break down silos, and then you said it. Leadership can be really lonely. And I know we run from this word, not as a counselor, but accountability.
Yeah.
That's really what you're speaking out there, right? That bringing, yes, high challenge, a leader has to do that, but high support at the same point in time. And that high support is accountability and offer or opening themselves up. I love that you say it starts there at the core. Where do you see, here we go, that leaders often get this wrong? Like we know that, we have that knowledge. Where do you see that hurdle most show up?
Hmm. Well, I want to say that most leaders, and I've been in this place because I've had a couple businesses myself, is that
Mm-hmm.
we get hung up on, and I'll throw out a couple P's: processes, productivity. Hit those. We want to hit the bottom lines. We want to hit our projections, and I think that's important because we can't have a business unless we're setting goals and reaching those goals. But I think we just get lost along the way and
Mm,
forget that it's people that help us put the processes together, that help us create the productivity that can actually contribute to that. But it's hard because we can be very driven, and we drive right over our teams. People that we respect and admire and appreciate will drive right over them because we see the end in mind, and that's important. That we can't literally fumble right over our people that can help
yeah.
us get there in a much better way.
I love that you highlighted and went directly there, like laser. It is important. There is no business if there isn't productivity happening. If we're just throwing it up against the wall to see what sticks. But there is a P that you didn't say, but that's all is priority.
Um,
Where is our priority?
yeah,
What's driving us? Where's the fire coming from? Where's that ignition coming from? And it is the people, and being able to address those needs is what then will inevitably affect that bottom line. It looks fine on the outside. We use that word fine, and I'm like, feelings inside, not expressed. That's fine. What are some early signs as you've been doing this now for quite a while? What are some early signs that you're seeing that team culture is actually fraying and we're just kind of pushing through?
yeah.
That maybe a leader listening like, "Oh, is that what that is?"
Well, I was thinking about that, and I really want to go back to that leader a minute,
Mm,
because I can't get away from this space. Is that it really starts and ends with the leader, and whether we could often as a leader put it on somebody or something else. The machine broke down, or that person left the company, or whatever. That it does end with us, and so I really want to go back to that passion and the why. Because if, as a leader, we are losing our passion
mm,
for it, then we're going to show up to our teams differently. We're going to show up to those conversations. We're going to show up to brainstorming sessions differently if our heart's not in it anymore.
so
And
true.
that is, I think that's very dangerous because we've got a lot of people looking to us and saying, "Hey, you're my paycheck, and I believe in this company. I've given so much." And I think it's important for us to be honest with if we are losing our passion, then we do need to go back and find it again. And I
Mm,
said before, it's not like we have to leave what we're doing, but man, it's just we don't want to own that a lot of times because we do feel like we're going to be letting somebody else down. But this is where I get really, really excited about things. If a leader loses the heart of their why, it will impact the whole entire company community. However, if a leader says, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm struggling, we don't need to go tell everybody about it, but we need to tell somebody about it.
yes.
and I'm going to speak from my own, when I was at that space in counseling where I'm just like, do I stay? Do I go? I've built this business. These people rely on me. I've got other employees that rely on me. What do I do? And it took me a while to come to that honest moment. But then I said, I got to do this. And really it came down to, it was best for me to do this because I wasn't living out of my best self anymore. And it was really best for my clients too, because they weren't getting the best of me.
That's right.
So, I did close up shop there, but then I had to go on a bit of a journey to figure out what was next. In the meantime, I was still working with people, but I feel like I have reemerged as a better coach, as try not to counsel, but I take those tools with me. But as a consultant, as a friend, as a mentor, an accountability partner, I feel like I'm literally the best version of myself because I chose to be honest with myself. And that's, and I'm not telling leaders to be honest just for the sake of honesty or, hey, it's good for you, but not good for me. Like I went on that journey and I know the impact that it made on me. And I really believe that it can make that kind of impact on other leaders too. So
Well,
again, a
and
long
and
story.
we have no, but gosh, we've traversed this together, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
love about it. The leadership journey, great word for it, is one of resilience. We all
Mm,
know that it is not rainbows and sunshines every day. The amount of times that I get asked, or it's, oh, it must be so great, you're your own boss. And sometimes we have to have that counsel, right?
yeah.
The bottom line is, as you're talking about that, Jen, and getting to those crossroad spaces,
Yeah.
having those accountability partners, having those people and places that you can say, I don't know what to do here. What do you think? That has been the difference and the growth that I've experienced. I'm hearing you say that
Yeah.
because it is a resilient, challenging space to be a leader. And we there is a calling that I really feel that's been placed on us in that space. Okay, you have helped people navigate some huge, not only emotional but professional spaces of burnout. Okay,
Yeah.
you and I have talked about this, and you've helped me walk in that space. How do you personally refill your tank so that
Mm.
you can keep showing up for others well?
Yeah, and you just asking that question is really accountability for me because, it's one thing to say it. And there were times in counseling that I was saying it. There's even times in coaching that I'm saying it. But it is important to make that commitment. And it's funny because yesterday, I've just finished some pretty big projects and I just knew that I needed to take some time. And most of the time, I would go and hang out in nature. I'll go climb something, hike something. I love new adventures. A lot of times, I'll even do those myself because it just gives me time to think and reflect and pray and just be. Our busyness. I'm not my best
Mm-hmm.
self when I'm overly busy.
Mm.
Like who I am when I can be a bit steadier. And so, there is power in that downtime. And so yesterday I kind of took the whole day off and I went adventuring to a few places I'd never been before. And honestly, at the end of the day, I was like, this is one of my best days I've had in a long time. And it's just basically I got in a car and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go shopping. And then I took a detour and did this. But I was just like, I'm not on a time schedule. This day, I've carved this day for me. And I kind of came in today pretty darn excited to hang out with you.
And you shared just in a voice chat that is what you were going to do, and just hearing that again, back to that accountability, really spoke in to my heart and space, and reminding me, and the audience hears me say this often, the preciousness of living in the pause. Well, now you all know where I got that from, because this is what Jen's been speaking in, and really at times you feel like, but I can't stop, I can't. No, but you need to. It is in that pause where we become our best selves and who's showing up in the space. So I really appreciate, one, that authenticity in there, and the vulnerability. It's vulnerable as a leader to say, A, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'll find out. We're going to work through this together. And B, I can't just, and I shouldn't just keep going, because it's one thing as a leader to say, take time off. I understand work-life balance. But if they don't ever see you do that, if those that you're leading and coaching and influencing only hear the words and never see it, and they're like, but do they really mean that? And
Mhm.
I so appreciate that about the way that you walk out your leadership, Jen. It makes such a difference in our space. All right. Not that we haven't been already, and not that you and I aren't. So hold on tight, audience. But we're going to get real and just talk about a few lessons that you've come away with, right? Sometimes these lessons that we walk through actually are tough. They hurt, there's pain, but ultimately there's healing that comes out there on the other side. What's something that you'd go back and hug yourself for actually surviving, getting through?
That's good. Somebody just recently said, "Oh, Jen, that's really great that you just did this crazy journey of closing up your life and starting over and starting a new business. Oh, it had to just be a sweet moment." And I was like, "It was not sweet at all. It was freaking hard."
Yes, exactly.
But I look back, and my husband and I had this conversation. I needed to leave counseling. And I want to say one of the hardest life lessons for me is, in my head, I'm like, I'm building this business. I'm going to be here forever. It was a bit of a mindset that I had, our community had. You get
Mm-hmm.
a really good job. Why would you ever want to leave it? And, so I lived that out in my life. And I had to come to terms with this season was closing. I
Mm-hmm.
needed to shut the door on it, and I probably needed to do that earlier than I did. But I want to, I guess I would go back and hug myself, maybe high five myself, fist bump, a couple things there, just like, I'm proud of you for not like living out the status quo of like, this is
Mm.
how we do it. That I'm talking to myself, that you like listen to your heart and to your soul, that there was something else out there. Cause that's really what it was about. Is I loved what I did. And I was good at what I did. People are like, go see Jen, she'll help you. Because I worked hard at trying to figure that out for people. But then I knew I had to do it differently. And I was dreaming again, and I was scared to dream. But I did. And when I started dreaming, I saw myself in other spaces, helping in other ways, but still making that kind of deep impact. And
Mm.
I try to be a very purposeful person. So my impact has to hit those roots. And
Yes.
it was scary. So part of it was dreaming and then acting on that dream, because I think a lot of times, we leaders, we do dream, but we don't want to act
Mm.
on it because sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. There's a cost. It may even be a consequence initially, and we don't want to shake things up. We found in COVID that we don't love change. The whole pivoting thing, it's almost like a
Mm.
bad word,
Yes, I
but
know.
but and so we're looking for stability.
So yeah.
And I'm a big believer of it, but it's all about growth. We have to constantly be on a growth mindset, not massive growth, not crazy, but like incremental steps of growth. And part of that is giving ourselves space and permission to dream, and that's what I did. And so I'm high fiving myself for dreaming and then actually acting on it. That's something I'm pretty
Well,
proud of.
and there's twofold, and you, as you should be, because there's twofold there. One, it's huge. Give yourself permission to dream. Like, let's not gloss over that, because
Yeah.
all of those words are really intentional and purposeful. There is that permission that has to be given. Like, I'm going to do this and then act upon it. Wow, the bravery in that space. Again, going back to why we need not do this stuff alone, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And because in those moments we're like, is this crazy? Maybe a little bit." And that's okay, because we're looking outside of that status quo, like you said, and having encouragement to it, hold things loosely,
Mm.
right? We don't want to just change for change's sake. And we can get into that space. I think we've all been in community or teams that, again, what's the purpose? Is it connected to our why as
Yeah.
we're looking to make these changes, these strategic moves? But the flip side of that is if we're holding on so tightly, there's no growth in that.
Yeah.
And then we've got to identify, and I love that you keep going back to this space. What is the source of the challenge? What's the source of the issue? And is it fear? Is it pride? Why are we holding on so tightly? And I think that's the beauty of the work that you're stepping into and what you're sharing and being able to do with leaders and teams is that you're getting them to those core issues. And that's where the true change
Yeah.
takes place. And that ripple effect, that impact is what is making all of the difference. And really, as we love to say, there's the game changer.
Mhm.
You know, it's amazing, and I can't believe that we're almost to the end of our time, but I would be remiss. I gotta ask this. Your opinion, and you've been in this. What do you believe is the biggest lie? I'm going to call it like it is, that leaders really believe about themselves when it comes to their worth and the impact that they're making.
Yeah. There's a lot that actually come to my mind, and I think they all kind of come into one, they kind of trickle into one
Hmm.
space. And I think that we think that we are indispensable, and
Ah,
and that our word needs
hmm.
to be final. And I want to go back to a theme that you and I have been talking about. Are we building an empire with us at the top, or are we building a community? Are we
Hmm.
really trying to change lives in what we do? And I think a lot of times people start out with a really good why, but then we lose. I have to be responsible for all of these things. And without me, the place will fall apart. And gosh, that opens up so many other conversations that we could have is, are we as leaders, are we mentoring other people? Are we
Mm.
guiding them to be the leader that they have been designed to be? Because I think we're all meant to lead in some space.
Yes.
Are we encouraging other people to lead out of their giftings and their strengths? Sometimes we're looking, we're talking about being indispensable or thinking that our word is, gold. We forget that other people have different personalities and different ways that they lead and show up and how they can be an asset to a community. And so I think it's important for us to be listening, um,
Mm.
humble ourselves a moment or two and hear what other people have to say, even if that's contradictory to what we are saying. If we're creating that community, other voices are a part of that community. They're looking at our problem from different angles. They are going to actually be able to give perspective that we can't.
Yep.
So it's just never forgetting that this isn't a hierarchy. We're a team where I love to lead beside people. I don't always. I don't know. I can get ahead of people. But I think the best space is when we're walking alongside of somebody saying, "Hey, let me just show you what I've done and teach me a little something," and we can just kind of walk together. And I think that's just the best space to be. And we can get ourselves into trouble when we just think that we have to be the end all be all. And we get in our head and it goes bad.
It you're right. That's the best way to say it. Does go bad.
Yeah.
Nothing good comes from that.
Yeah.
And the temporary, there's not that lasting impact when we feel like we've got to be the ones to hold it all. I love how you spoke that out, and I really want that to resonate. I know that it does with me, but to audiences, you're thinking about that. That is where we truly start to win, right? What may sound like, oh, am I losing control? Well,
Hmm.
leadership is never meant to be about control. It's influence. And you said, you're like, we all lead in some way, or even if it's not in our title. Yeah, because we are influencing. Just ask your children or
Yeah.
your grandchildren, or, I get to be the favorite aunt. Like those kids, what we don't want them to remember or repeat, like they are sponge, and so are the people,
Oh,
all of those that are in and under our space. That influence is very real, and we need to be intentional with it. Those are some real practical spaces, and I that's how I want us to wrap up today. Like there are so many great nuggets that you have given us, and I want, as we wrap things up, to leave with a practical nugget that we can really start to work on. If a leader's listening right now and they're thinking, this has been awesome, where do I start? I want to lead with more intention, but I don't know where to begin. What is one mindset, habit, practice that you would say this week? Because I know, Jen, this is who you are. Start here. What would that be?
Uh, well, here we are. This is just a theme. I really want to tell a leader is, find their people. You said it
Mm,
earlier. How I was able to make my shift is I found people that were on a trajectory of growth and progress and movement, and I wasn't surrounded by that. So if I could give any leader wisdom, is find those people that are going to walk alongside of you, keep you accountable. And maybe those people are a little further along. And that's motivation for you to say, well, if they can do it and they've been through that, well, then I can do it too. So I think that that's really where it's important is we may have to change playgrounds and playmates at times so that we can really be our best selves. And as we said before, when we are our best selves, we are going to lead and influence and empower people to do the very same. So, yeah, it's about
I,
finding community.
I love it. I love it. We're talking about the fact of business and in this realm, and I've heard another leader most recently saying it resonated with me. We should all have our own board of directors and
Mhm.
be a part of someone else's board, like a person. This is my advisory board, and be open to that and allowing those your people to speak in, to
Mhm.
be curious and ask the questions. Well, why that? I know, Jen, you've done that and been that for me. And it's made such a tremendous difference in my trajectory, in my journey. And I can't say thank you enough. That has made the difference. So I shouldn't be surprised that that was what you would say is that's where to begin. And so I would encourage listeners, that is a great place to start. All right. So we have gone into some really deep places. We've got some practical things that we've walked through. You're leaving us with a lot to chew on. It's not just for today. A little bit of fun before we finish up. And I think you already answered this one, but rapid fire, mountains or beach?
Ooh, mountains,
I,
definitely.
I know that one. This is my hiking girl. All
Yes.
right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, chocolate, deep, dark chocolate.
I mean, can't you taste it?
Oh, yes.
If you had to, and this is a tough one, best leadership advice, but in one word.
Mm, intentional. That's my word.
Well placed. And most life-giving part of your week, and you might have told us already, but we're, only halfway through.
Well, it was on Monday, and it was just giving myself space to go have a little adventure and dream a little. It just helps me show up for the whole rest of the week in a much better way.
What a great way to start a Monday. What a great way to kick off our time together. And as we close up our time, but just a reminder of that, allowing ourselves to dream.
Mm.
Jen, our time has been too quick and but so rich. I want the audience to know if they want to learn more about you, the work you're doing, what's new on your horizon, or to bring your voice into their organization. What's the best way to do that?
Oh, just jump on my website, rolandltc.com, and they'll find some information about me and then a connect page.
Fantastic. Well, I encourage everyone to be able to do that. Check out, learn more about Jen. You've shared, like I said, such deep, thick, rich insight today. And one of the things I admire most is your ability to hold both truth and tenderness all in the same breath. I want to thank you for helping leaders in the work that you're doing find clarity, their resilience, and their purpose. And definitely want to say thank you for saying yes to the Cultivate experience.
Wendy, I am honored to have you as a friend because you've said, "Hey, I can help you," but I've watched you and you've helped me in huge ways. Your perseverance is amazing, and so I'm just honored to be able to walk alongside of you and learn and just grow from that as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, there you go, folks. There's finding your people. So go out and do that. Cultivate collaborators, you know that that's a wrap for today. But remember, each of us brings our own special flavor to the mix of relational leadership. So until next time, let's keep stirring things up, making an impact, and being better together. Thanks so much. Before we sign off today, I want to send out huge appreciation to our listeners for tuning in. I hope you felt seen, heard, and inspired to level up your own leadership journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're ready to level up your leadership, asking for a friend, or interested in being a guest on the show, connect with me at cultivateforgood.com. That's cultivateforgood.com. Remember, as leaders, we're either driving progress or we're driving the problem. So let's grow together.